everybody. Welcome to the March 3rd Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Richard Migliore.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
You almost have a tan. We've heard that several times this morning. I like the show today, and I like this time of year, Andy, because I think we're looking for horses that maybe will be better suited to the main track, one-turn 7/8, one-turn miles, that kind of thing.
I agree. I think that's a very, very good point. You have to start thinking about that because we'll be on the inner for another month, but it's only 4 weeks away, and we'll be back on the outer track, and those are much different races, less two-turn races and the elongated sprint, 7/8 and a mile. We'll start out by looking at a first-time starter, same connections, of course, as Mo Heyman, Dahmen, who finished third, and a horse, and Dahmen is the 4 that's going to get eliminated at the break. Wasn't going to win the race, but certainly had trouble at the start.
Yeah, his uncoupled entry mate, horse from the same barn, Amoral, was decidedly best. Now, he did get wiped out. He broke slowly, got wiped out. Now, you're going to see Junior Alvarado was trying to get him motivated there. I question the wisdom of getting him right out in the clear. You've already gotten away poorly. It's an opportunity to really school one and make him take the kickback. Now, he gets to climbing, and I know you want to go forward, but I think I would have left him in there and let him learn a little bit more, and I think going forward, it would have helped him for his career as more than for this particular effort.
Now, let me, just as I'm interested, it's obviously a very interesting take on it. So now, do you think Junior was worried that if he didn't do anything on him, the horse might have dropped 30 lengths behind?
Well, you know, you have to ride him. You can't just sit on him because you've got to make him go forward. But I think when you go right out to the clear like that and they're not getting hit with that spray. Now, he ducks him in later, so, you know, he did get some education. But I think when it happens right out of the gate like that, you want to let them really get that full spray because they're going to get used to it, and I think they're just going to learn more. Now, this horse ran on and just missed second. But I just think as an educational experience, it would have been better if he had just stayed down in there early instead of going out and then ducking back in.
I do like that he put him inside and he came out and he split horses there. I think got a little education. And, you know, to be fair about the performance, he ends up third. He loses second by a head. It had a lot to do with the fact that the winner was going out and he won by 13 lengths, so it makes it a little bit illusory behind him. I mean, he could have lost the race, could have finished 5th and beaten 13 lengths. But I do like that he at least got himself a little in the game, and he clearly was a horse that just needed to start.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I was paying particularly close attention to him in the post parade, and he was really kind of a playboy. He wanted to kind of bite at the pony, get on the pony. He wasn't very focused, and the fact that he put it together and came running leads me to believe that next time he's going to be a lot more clued in to what's going to happen.
Let me ask you a question, because I was looking at a horse that's running the next few days, and I would have thought they would have stretched it out. Do you think that they're going to likely sprint this horse next time? And they could probably go 7/8 and maybe a one-turn mile. But let's just assume they're on the inner for now.
Sure.
Do you think they're going to sprint him at 6, or do you think they're more likely to want to run a 1:70 or a mile?
I think they'll stretch him out to a 1:70, you know, two-turn race. If they run him back on the inner, I don't really care for that. I like a horse to have 2 sprints, whether it's 6 to 7, you know, that's fine. I just think when you go from a one-turn sprint to a 2-turn mile or 1:70, you're throwing a whole new set of circumstances at a horse. We saw it recently with a West Point horse called Why Not. Ran really big sprinting, and then he ran okay going long, but I just think it's throwing a whole nother set of circumstances.
I'm hoping he ran really well going along, because I think he's running the day that we're taping this,
and
I picked him, so he better run well.
Well, it's his second start going long.
But yeah, no, I know. I'm teasing you. I think you're absolutely right, though. It is a very, very different game for a horse, and we'll see how he does. But this one might be okay, Dahmen. He'll certainly run better, we think, in his next start. Now we'll turn our attention to the 25th of February, and I want to take a look at the 5th race from that day. And we're going to start out by showing the start, and while Broadway Bay, the 6, is affected a bit. It's really the 5, Howell, who was going short in here for the first time in a while, that gets badly affected and taken out of the race. And this is not specifically, Richie, the reason I wanted to show this race, so you're going to see the trouble there. I wanted to show this race in particular, and we'll go back to the gate and we'll show you it from the pan shot, because this was a slow pace that held together. They ran 1-3-2 around the racetrack. The speed horse is able to wire the field. You're going to see Howell's, you know, steady much more abruptly here. Outside of him is Broadway Bay. 2 things happen. Obviously, that affects the closers. With the 5 getting in trouble, being put in that position, he had no shot from the race dynamics. But also, I knew the pace was slow when I was watching the replay, and Broadway Bay, after steadying at the start, was sitting this close, because he's a horse, Richie, that can come from 20 lengths behind and be effective. This is a race where I think you really want to take a look at the closers next time they run.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And the winner, Dean Verdile, is a horse that only seems to run when he makes the lead, and he got everything soft again. Interesting, I thought the horse that winds up running second, Liberty First, is the horse that caused all the problems.
Yep.
And it took, in my estimation, Irad Ortiz a long time to straighten him up. He really accordioned the outside of the field there. And I agree with you. I think those horses, they were not only eliminated, the fact that they even got had any sort of run after that, I think points out that they're horses to follow back. And I go back to this, particularly 7/8 or a mile even.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Broadway Bay is more of a closing sprinter type. I totally agree with you on Howell. This is a horse that wants to go. 7 is really a one-turn mile. Belmont even a mile and 16. No superstar, but they were compromised. I think the point is, we're not saying to you that these horses ran such supersonic races. What we're really saying to you is, next time these horses ran, horses like this had legitimate excuses. And I thought this was a very good example of a little bit of trouble, but more race dynamics affecting the race. Because the way the race was run, those horses had no chance.
No, they had absolutely no chance. And it was basically a gift to Dean Verdile. Again, a horse that seems to need the lead. And twice in a row now he's gotten in positions where he's dictating the flow of the race. And you can't always count on that happening.
Right. I completely agree with that. I thought it could have been a situation where Manny Franco was on Jackson P, who could easily have been the speed. He was not aggressive, and that's what enabled Deal Verdile for Henrik Carmouche, who's continued to ride sensationally.
How many times have we seen that, though? You've got a horse that's fast from the outside, and because they're outside and the rider doesn't feel like they're under any pressure to go forward, they become complacent, and they follow horses. He should have went.
I don't understand it because complacency doesn't win.
No.
Aggression wins, complacency is punished, yet we continually see it. Well, we'll see how much more we see of it. I've been away for a couple of months. We'll look forward to watching these races, and we'll be on Trips and Traps talking about them. It's a little different in Florida depending on the situation. You've got a lot of aggressive riders who are younger and such, and you see more aggressive riding overall down there. Then sometimes they have the turf race the weekend. Sometimes it seems the better the quality of the race and the higher level of the riders, the less aggression you see.
It's interesting, because normally we've seen it for years when Calder, a lot of good riders came out of Calder, but they were extremely aggressive.
Right. You do see it with those riders, not as much. And a lot of the top riders, of course, are riders who ride around here most of the time. The 6th race on February 26th, and I was really glad you sent this one to me because I wouldn't have wanted to miss this because we'll talk a little about the one Ranger Express, and I know you want to talk about him, but Times Square is a horse that hadn't run since December and a horse that I had liked a lot in his last start for trainer Bruce Brown and ran inexplicably badly. Something must have happened because Times Square ran a sensational race to finish 3rd here. When you consider she was wide literally all the way around. Rangers Express has lost all position, Richie.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk about Rangers Express. And we talked about it off air. A horse that kind of leaves you a little bit hungry, that you don't have a lot of confidence going forward. I just don't like when you've got an inside post, you allowed yourself to get shuffled out of the race. You've got to be aggressive. And I thought even the trip after that, in some ways, was just stop and go, no continuity.
Well, I also think, Richie, it's a great example of what we've talked about so many times, and you and I have talked about for 15 years, getting your position going forward. I know we say this a lot, but there's a reason we say it a lot. If he's not a speed, but if you leave the gate looking to get a position in there, you find yourself in a contending position. If you leave the gate ho-hum or whatever, you find yourself in positions like this where no matter how good you are, you can't win.
Well, now you're in between horses, 3, 4 wide. Basically an impossible position to win from. And this horse had some run. You're going to see it kind of steady a little bit here. And a horse that's probably very willing to steady out of a spot, to be fair. Now,
not a great horse to ride.
Well,
I agree.
Exactly. So
he does a good thing here, saving ground.
Yeah, ducks back in, and now let's talk about Times Square, who did run a better race. A horse that was, unfortunately, because of the post, caught wide every step of the way. And I'm going to bring up another point that I think about Times Square. I think this is a horse that needs blinkers because I think kind of lost a bit of focus being out wide around the turn.
I thought when he turned for home, he was going to finish 9th. I'm like, Richie's sending me a horse to look at that's going to run 9th. I mean, how are we going to show this race with this horse on the trip? But he runs tremendously.
Yeah, ran on and just missed the play spot. And I really think this horse ran a bit spotty. And I think blinkers will give this filly, some continuity in her run. And you're going to see she pans out here and almost gets second.
She ran an amazing race. She hadn't run, I guess, since December 16th. So you're talking about a horse that was off 2 months, over 2.5 months, wide every step of the way, and never stopped coming. I thought that Times Square ran tremendously. Compare the trip at Times Square to the trip of the winner. The winner got a tremendous trip with Gabriel Saez.
Fabulous ride by Saez, but what did he do? He got his position going forward into the turn, sat in the pocket, and gave himself options, and that's what you need to do, particularly on the inner track.
No, I agree, and it's so the start of the races over and over again, and you can see it in every one we've shown, they dictate what happens in the races as we come to our last race. And once again, it's going to be a situation where the start plays a very important role, and this is the 2-horse Life in Shambles. And I agree, Richie, this is one of these horses that will benefit from an elongated sprint at 7/8, even a mile.
Yeah, and that's what this horse wants. The best races he's ran were at Belmont, actually going a 1-turn mile. And if you'd have told me before the race this horse would have been behind Crafty Dreamer, I would say there's absolutely no way. But you can see, breaks a step slow and completely gets eliminated when those horses come together.
Right, and the one comes out and it's just over.
Yeah, and who was on the one horse? Well, that was Irad Ortiz Jr. again, wasn't it?
No, that was Angel Arroyo, actually.
I'm sorry, Angel Arroyo, okay. And one thing I want to applaud the stewards here in New York. They've been taking guys to task for careless riding out of the gate, and I think you're going to see cleaner starts because guys are going to straighten up quicker.
I totally agree. I was very happy to see some of the fines that were handed out, and not because we want to see these riders getting indiscriminately punished, but I think it really showed the stewards paying attention to something that, listen, you and I have talked about quite a bit, making sure you at least keep straight out of the gate. This is a horse Life in Shambles. Jose puts him between horses. Well, probably not the best move.
Well, it's something that we talk about a great deal. There's a certain point when you get to the turn that you've got to be all the way in there or all the way out of there. And he put himself in no man's land and paid the price because he had to steady out. And I think this is a horse that wants to be a bit one-paced anyway. I don't think you're ever going to see a big kick from him, and that's why like a 1-turn mile probably suit him better.
Be closer to the pace, he could grind it out a little bit.
Right, but you can't steady at that point when the rest of the race is heating up and they're getting away from you, particularly on a horse that's one-paced.
And once again, let's keep in mind this was a race that was won wire to wire. Hendrik Carmouche on the winner, wire to wire. So what real chance did he have? And overall, he actually did run well when you consider all the events that took place.
Oh, absolutely. And I really think Life in Shambles could have been a lot closer. I don't know that he would have been second or third, but he would have been a lot closer. And I just felt like he never got a fair chance with the way the race panned out after the start. But after the bad start, you have to basically say, okay, I've got to be really smart about it. And I thought some decisions made after that weren't quite so smart.
Right. Once you get that bad start, you've lost all chance to have a second problem, whether your own or another. Now, a lot of the things that happen are not the rider's fault, but you've lost that. You've lost your get-out-of-jail-free card, essentially.
You've been dealt a bad hand.
Right.
Now how you got to play that hand. And interesting, we talk about riders from the outside. This is why Hendrik Carmouche has been riding so well, and to me, the best speed rider in New York right now. This horse, Angry Moon, broke from the outside, and he didn't play games. He went on.
Right. You must watch some of these races and say, I wish I was out there riding, because one thing you knew how to do was get to the front end of the horse.
Either that or me, Kendrick, and Aaron Greider might be killing each other every race, but we'd be going forward.
You know, it's an interesting game. It's nice to be back in New York. It's nice to be here with you, Richie. We can always use your help. It's trips and traps at NYRAinc.com.